All right, everybody, thanks for being here.
Thanks for holding us.
And let me just add to what Ryan said before and say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for what you did. And you should feel incredible and awesome about what you just accomplished. Even though right now you're just shell-shocked. And if somebody were to say, so tell me about your summer, you'd say, lean over, I'm a fire hydrant, take a sip. You know, and out it would all go. Not easy to explain, but you'll get there. And because we did do this in sales school, we got to do it one time. You ready? How'd you do? How'd you do selling books? Well, the answer to that is you did awesomely well. You're here, and you should feel fantastic about it. And the purpose of this presentation is to share with the people in the U.S. and also to share with our people in Europe. So everybody, let's say hi to the E1 organization. They're all back there. And let's say hi to the Highlanders that are out there. So that's exciting. Woo! So we're excited about this because one thing that all of you have in common, or at least almost all of you, is that you're going to be going back to your university, back to your college. So who's at least partially excited about that? In fact, you're really excited about that, which should tell you how irrational this whole thing is. 3 months ago, you could hardly wait to get away from that place, right? And now it's like, let me back, let me back. And I remember how that felt. There were certain things I was particularly fired up about, and they'd made no sense to anybody that hadn't done this. One thing I was excited about, I lived in the dorm, I was excited about going to my dorm and getting right in the door. I mean, I got right in first time, and it was so much fun. I did it again. And I made the mistake of telling one of my less supportive roommates, hey man, I got right in that door. And he went, loser. You know, so you got to be careful kind of how you do that stuff. Is anybody kind of excited about eating where you can consume food sitting down? Yeah. Yes. Or not in a car, right? You know, which would be a different experience. I would encourage you to enjoy what we call slow food. This is any meal that lasts more than 90 seconds, you know, and enjoy that process. I remember getting excited about, believe it or not, buying my textbooks. Because I waited in line at the Harvard Co-op and I got to the front of the line and I said to the clerk, I said, hey, you know what? I'm buying these. And the guy said, duh. Yeah, and I said, no, you don't get it, man. I'm buying them. I'm not selling them. And he thought, there's a lot of weirdos around here. It's okay, I kind of get that. So anyway, I hope you're also excited about going back and being in a classroom and being back in the academic mode and learning a few things like that. And that's really what this whole presentation is about. It's how you can take the momentum from the summer and translate it into your best grades ever. So who'd be down for that? So that'll be fun. So we're going to give you some ideas. In fact, the way you spell the word university, the first letter is actually spelled Y-O-U, because the most important way to make this all work is if you decide you're going to. So let's share a couple of quick ideas. First of all, start with why. Give me a couple of quick reasons. Why do you think you should max out your time at university and just get everything out of it as much as you can? Give me a couple quick reasons. Right back there.
Because you're paying for it.
Because you're paying for it. You're exchanging something of value. Or somebody's paying for it. So you want to make sure there's a little value coming out of that. Excellent reason. Why else do the best you can? Yes?
Education is so important. So many families.
Who's heard that education's important? Yeah. And it truly is. It truly is. On a more serious note, did anybody meet families this summer that said, man, I wish I could have gone to college, or I wish I could go back to college knowing what I know now? So you have that advantage. Okay, why else max it out? Yes?
Well, because it proves how much work you did during the work you did in the book field.
All right, to kind of be a proof of concept that the work you did in the book field doesn't make you just a flash in the pan, as they say. In fact, how many of you feel like you climbed several mountains this summer? And you did. So there's a slogan I would encourage you, and that is, don't just be a 90-day wonder. A 90-day wonder is somebody that's amazing on the book field, great attitude, great schedule, problem solver, nothing bothers them, and then they forget all of it when they go back to their other world. So instead of being a 90-day wonder, I challenge you to be a 365 and 1/4 day a year star. All right, that's for my leap year friends in here, so we got to make that work. The biggest single reason is because of your future. Who can remember that phrase, the person you're going to someday be? What's the rest of it? You're now becoming. And it's a really powerful and challenging concept that if we can't motivate ourselves to do what we ought to do now, what makes us think we're going to automatically be able to do it later? And so if you keep that habit going, that the future you is applauding or booing and crying. And the decisions that you make right now are the ones that make that work. Now your future actually relates to your career and things that happen after school. Has anybody ever heard of what's called NACE? NACE stands for the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And it's a national association of colleges and employers. That's NACE. And it has about 800 college members and about 800 employers. And they sit at a conference and yell at each other. And the employers say, give us these traits. And the school says, we can't, but we'll try. And they make a list of what they're looking for in graduates. So look at what number 1 is. Communication skills. All of you had a whole lot of experience of that this summer. But did you discover that communication is not just what you say, it's what they actually understand of what you say? Whoever had this experience, you knock on the door and they look at you and say, just tell me what you're doing. And you said, okay, I'm selling books. And they say, well, look, just tell me what you're doing. I'm selling books. And they say, tell me what you're doing. I'm selling books. And so communication not as easy as it seems, but we try anyway, don't we? What's number 2 on the list? Taking initiative and showing motivation. Now, are there any classes at your university called Initiative 102? Not so much. So what if I could share with you a really simple way that you can get better at number 1 and better at number 2, and all you got to do is raise your hand? Okay, so I'm going to practice with you. I might have some UT people in here that can help us with this. The minute I say volunteer, just put your hand up in the air. Ready? I'm looking for a volunteer. Okay, who'd like to volunteer? Okay, is there a volunteer? Okay, good. Yeah, Dr. Pavlov would be proud of all of you. This is good. This is a conditioned response. Because at some point this semester, one of your professors is going to say, for the next class, I'm looking for a volunteer. And without even thinking, you do that. Just stick it up in the air. To prepare a case study on this particular subject. And as your hand goes down, you're thinking, oh, doo-doo, why did I do that? But in the course of preparing for that and delivering it, you become better at communicating, and you just illustrated motivation and initiative, just with a raise of your hand. So it's a cool thing to do, and it can work for you. Teamwork, leadership. Is GPA unimportant, according to NACE? No, but it's not the most important. And we'll talk about GPA in a few minutes. Interpersonal skills. Oh, number 7. Who had an advanced graduate seminar in that this summer? Flexibility, adaptability. In fact, how about problem solving, number 10? How many of you have expanded your definition of what you used to consider a problem? So don't be impatient with the earthlings when you get back to wherever you're going, because they'll be saying, oh, I'm so stressed out, I don't know if I can get my class. And you'll be saying, you're stressed about that? Dude, I lived in a cardboard box for 2.5 weeks this summer. Took a shower from a garden hose, and you're stressed out? So you've learned flexibility, adaptability, and all the rest of that. So you're well on the road toward this. So in terms of college and your grades, what does success look like? What's our target? How do we measure academic success?
A number.
It's a number, and that number's got 3 letters. GPA, all right? And so I want to encourage you to have a target for your GPA. Do not leave here necessarily saying, I got to get a 4.0. Because although 4.0s are awesome, there are all kinds of people that graduate with 4.0s that do not get into the grad school they want, that do not get the jobs they want, because all they do is study. They have no other dimensions to them. They're very unidimensional. But have a GPA that is good and respectable. So figure out what's needed for you and have a target. Now the reason having a target's important is you've already learned that this summer. How many of you started out each day with a pretty definite idea of how many demos you wanted to get in each goal period, right? Can you imagine how your summer would have gone if you started and you looked at your roommates after execs and said, okay guys, let's go do it. Let's go get them. Yo, let's do this thing. How do you find do this thing on your BAR, right? You can't do that. But having specific targeted goals helps us. And track them and know where you stand, because that's a really important thing. Now we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of things that you've got going for you and everybody else has too. What is one thing that every human has in equal quantity? Every human that's ever lived. The same number of hours in a week. That's 168. We have no more than that. And fortunately, we have no less than that. But have you ever done as I have and said, oh man, I ran out of time? But you actually didn't. You had it all. You can't run out of it. You have it all. Or, oh, if I only had more time. Well, can't really get any more time. And I used to get kind of into this, so I would take what they call time management seminars. Has anybody heard of those things? And I go to a seminar and they would say, we're going to teach you how to manage time. And I decided they had lied to me. Because I'd leave the seminar with my certificate and I'd look at my clock and it would keep on ticking. 60 seconds in a minute, and I'd say, slow down. And it would then 60 minutes in an hour and 575,600 minutes. I mean, it kept going. And then finally I got a friend from Texas. He loaned me his Texas tool and I went and blew the clock right off the wall. And that's how I manage time. I manage time. Yes, indeed. Whoop. All right, so anyway, here's what we end up learning. We cannot manage time. But we can learn to do what? Manage ourselves. And that's what this whole part is all about. And so I want to share with you a couple of things that might make a big difference for you. First of all, I have to do a proper intro. You'd be really disappointed if I flew right into the demo. So what if I could tell you a really simple system that would let you get all A's and B's, you'd have all your evenings free, all your weekends free, and it didn't cost an arm and a leg. Would that be something you could make a decision on without stepping on your husband's toes?
Yeah.
All right. Proper intro. Well, I'm going to try to make this as simple as I can. On the screen here is a graphical representation of 168 hours. That's a week. But there's a part of it in red. Who can describe what we've got there in red in terms of hours and days? It's, what is it actually in words? The red part. 8 to 5, which days? Monday through Friday, which sounds suspiciously like a job, suspiciously like it. So here's the whole key to this exercise. Allow yourself to be in only one of two places from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. One place you can go is sitting in class. Ideally one you are registered to take. I know the one down the hall on the history of volleyball is a lot more interesting, but be sitting with your butt in a chair, taking notes and listening in the classes you're supposed to go. Just go to your classes. And the second place you can allow yourself to be is in a quiet place of study, actually studying. And if you will do that from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, you're going to have a bold new world as a student. And you're all nodding sagely saying, I don't buy it. So let me try to dissect it for you a second. Has anybody exposed you to what's called the formula for being above average? It's fairly simple. Observe what average people do the opposite, and you'll be above average. So let's talk about the average college student. Let's suppose the first class is 10 o'clock on a Monday. When does the average student get out of bed? Okay, so a variety of answers, some of which started with 9, some of which were more honest and started closer to 10. But in truth, isn't that a difficult question to answer? The honest people here say, oh, Dan, I couldn't possibly just answer that question. It depends on so many factors, so many variables, like, is this a class I cannot afford to miss? Again. Is there someone reliable that can take notes for me? Or better yet, are the notes online? Or better yet, is the whole lecture on video on demand? And you look outside, but if the weather's bad, all bets are off. You know. So when we get out of bed is kind of an issue. Let's suppose class is over at 11, and the next class doesn't happen until 3. What happens to the average student during that time period?
A nap.
They go back to the sleep that was so rudely interrupted by their quest for an education, right? And then they show up kind of bleary-eyed for their 3 o'clock. It's over around 4. And literally from 4 till about 6, most students can have no recollection of what they did with their time. You can put them under a lie detector and they have no idea. I don't know. I'm fairly sure I was animate, but I didn't die, but I cannot account for those hours. And then somewhere around 6, giant herds of studentdom head toward eating places and spend huge amounts of time consuming bad food. And the number one subject of conversation is how much studying we all have to do. No, I have more than you. Oh, no, you don't. I have, oh, no, I can beat you there. So that takes an hour and a half. And then you start heading back to actually think about studying, but there are many distractions. You know, you go by somebody's room, it's like, whoa, Call of Duty. I need to level up. That's the girls. And the guys spend time getting their Pinterest up to date, you know, and getting all that organized. And then maybe around 9 you realize, oh shoot, I haven't tweeted all day. Instagram's way behind. Let me get all that's necessary caught up here. And then about 11 you crack a book and start studying. About 11:15 it's like, oh man, I'm so tired. I'm exhausted. I've been studying all night. Midterms come. What happens with the typical student? It's like this. You know, it's like, all hands on deck, general quarters, it's midterms. No, there's no time to brew coffee. Give me a can and a spoon. I'm just going to consume it out of the can. I got to stay awake, get through midterms, sleep for 72 consecutive hours. And then the next exam period, wash, rinse, repeat. Right? Does that story resemble some people you might know? Now let me introduce you to the new world that you'll experience if you do this. First class is at 10. But because you're book girl, book guy, you realize you're not in class. Where are you supposed to be? Your quiet place of study. And we'll talk about where that is in a moment. Get up a little bit early and have actually a decent breakfast. The typical student, if they have breakfast, they say, oh, I got to get some breakfast. Oh, there's some Cheetos in this bag. Oh, some beer left in this can. All right, I got have something a bit more substantial than that. And at 8 o'clock you go to your quiet place of study. And what if you were to study from 8 to 10 for your 10 o'clock class? Where would your brain be when you walked into the 10 o'clock class? You would actually be on the same wavelength as your professor, which would be a new experience. Let's say class is over at 11. The teacher says, okay, your homework is due Wednesday. When does the average student start the homework that's due Wednesday? Wednesday. Yes, now honesty comes through. If you're a total overachiever, you sneak in a little bit Tuesday night, right? But in general, there's no rush to get homework done. And here's the problem with that. People that study memory have found that if we don't utilize something that we're exposed to, within 36 hours, we will forget about 90% of it. So when you pick up your homework assignment 36 hours later, and you look at your notes, have you ever had the experience of looking at your notes and going, who took these? What language are they in? You know, and then you look at the homework, it's like, I don't think I'm in this class. Oh yeah, I am. I don't. So what if you were to start your homework 5 minutes after it was assigned? First of all, your head's already in the subject, right? And if you just start, you get it. You apply it. It makes more sense. It goes easier. You do better at it, and you get more interested. You ever notice we enjoy things that we're good at? So you start getting more interested. Oh, I got that problem, got that problem, got that problem. Then about maybe 12, you take a quick break. Pack your lunch, by the way. Pack your lunch is cheaper. You ever packed a lunch before? Right, my only recommendation is do not pack a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, not until next summer. Because each time you see a PBJ, you're going to have PTSD. You know, so just avoid that for the moment. Have a quick bite to eat, and then maybe around 1 you shift gears and start studying for your 3 o'clock class. Class is over at 4, and instead of going to the urge to go someplace to get into trouble or go to the Union where they have those immensely plush chairs, you know, the plush chairs, you sit in them and you begin sinking. They're just like bottomless and you keep sinking. And you don't stop sinking until everyone around you is speaking Mandarin. It's like, you know, it's just an incredible experience. But you go to your quiet place of study, you get your work done. And then at 5 o'clock, here's what happens. You have no pressure on you. Your homework's caught up. You're current. And you will walk with a lightness in your step that other students are not familiar with. And this is when it gets to be fun, because now you get to torment others. It's very important in life, by the way, that you build a bit of mystique about your persona. And here's one of the best ways. Just go haunt people and say, hey man, you want to go out tonight? Oh, you got homework? Oh, dude, I feel for you. Hey, you know this new band is playing? It's really going to be great. Oh, you got a midterm to stay? You're behind. Hey, listen, I feel for you. Oh, yeah, you got to stay too. Hey man, there's these 2 girls who want to, oh, you got to work. Oh, dude, I'll take them both. It's no problem. And here's what's going to happen. Eventually, they'll start talking about you. They'll say, hey, you know that dude over there? You know that girl over there? Do you know she gets all A's and B's and never studies? Nobody's ever seen her study. Well, why's that? because they're asleep when you're studying, right? There are no witnesses to the crime of studying. So you get to be this kind of party animal at night. Because I don't know about you, but in my college, there were a lot more fun things to do at night than there were at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So get the study done during the dull time and enjoy your gravy period back at school, you know, which is kind of fun. Now, I fully get the fact that all of you have different situations, and so you're already thinking, oh yeah, Dan, that won't work for me. I have labs, or Dan, I'm in arts, I have studio, or Dan, I work part-time. Listen, I get all of those things. I did all that stuff too. But instead of just throwing this out the window, don't adopt it literally, but see if you can adapt it. See if you can adapt it to your situation. But let a baseline exist in your life, and that 8 to 5 is brilliant. 9 to 6 is brilliant, but something roughly 45 hours. That's your school and your study time. Those of you team building, here's a recommendation. How many of you built a team before? I know we've got several managers here. Keep your hand up if you feel like you learned as much from recruiting as you did from any one of your lectures in college. Oh yeah, I learned more. So I just decided that team building was equal to any of my classes. So I just pretended I was taking a 5th class or a 6th class that semester. And I built time into my schedule for team building, recruiting, going to presentations, following up. I felt like that was really important. And there are times you're going to have to burn the midnight oil. You might have a huge project, something's interrupted you, you've been away traveling. I get that stuff. But let's come back to this as a baseline and make a huge difference. Does that make sense? Okay. So now a quick word here on nighttime and the subject of sleep. Aren't you fired up about that subject now? Yeah. In fact, the more analytical among you, as you were doing your records next door, also began calculating the number of hours of sleep you did not get this summer. You've then broken them down in crystallized goal periods, and you said to yourself, okay, I got my goal periods. If I just sleep 14.6 hours a night, by November 11th, I'll be caught up. Well, here's just something. You can't ever make up for lost sleep. But what you can do is get new sleep habits. And here's the best recommendation I can ever make for students. How many hours of sleep are you supposed to get a night? 7 to 8, right? And from working with students for a lot of years, I have discovered that the average college student does get about 8 hours of sleep on the average per night. They get 2 hours one night, 14 the next. So on the average, it's 8. Doesn't actually work all that well in practice. So my suggestion is this. Learn to go to bed today and wake up tomorrow. Because the typical person goes to bed tomorrow and wakes up tomorrow, and they're always behind schedule. So at least Sunday through Thursday night, left to midnight is when you put your head on that pillow. And the other thing is, don't use devices and bring them to your bed. That blue light is scientifically engineered to keep you awake. Do something like read a B-O-O-K that's printed on P-A-P-E-R and sit there and read something like that. Read something dull and boring so you fall asleep, which can be good. But in seriousness, studies of adult sleep maladies have discovered that most of them started as teenagers or college students with bad sleep habits. And if you know any adults that have sleep apnea or they have all these other issues, just enjoy the opportunity to get some solid Z's, which would be really good stuff. So let's talk for a couple of minutes about the where. And think about it. Think it through. Because our minds tend to associate places with activities, which is pretty normal, isn't it? How many of you have a pretty quiet place to study at your college that you can think of now? All right. Does anybody here ever study where they live? Dorm room, apartment, etc.? Okay. How many of you have fun and enjoy yourself where you live also? Same hands. And who never raises their hand no matter what the question? Okay, very cool. Well, here's the problem you just created. If you study where you live, you've just confronted your poor self with an unwinnable dilemma. You walk into the place you live and you say, the place I live, a haven of academic excellence where I gain knowledge. And a nanosecond later you say, my crib where I hang. What wins about 90 out of 80 times? The crib, right? When confronted with thousands of more pleasant alternatives compared to studying, the human body goes to the pleasant alternatives. So I strongly recommend that you draw a dividing line between where you live and where you study. Let where you live be the place of joy, chill, relax, have fun, torment other people, read. Let where you live be a fun place. And let where you study be a harsh, cold, and unforgiving environment. Now, at Harvard, the library didn't work because it was a social center. It was very loud. And there was a big graduate student library, 10 stories high, but it had trolls, spirits. It was just not safe. So I had to ask around, and I finally found out that there is a library under the geology building. That's appropriate, isn't it? Under the geology building. And I discovered that even students that were majoring in geology were clueless that there was a geology library. So as a political science major, I stepped in there, and I could not even find an employee. That's how vacant this place was. Nobody there. And no distractions either, believe me. I mean, I wanted to get off schedule. I said, okay, I'm not going to study. I'm going to be rebellious. I'm going to read a magazine. So I grabbed the first magazine off the rack, and it said, The Journal of Plate Tectonic Theory. Oh, that's a bust. Let me get another one. Oh, Earthquake Monthly. Do P waves rule? All right, I guess I'll study. I mean, there was nothing in there. Somebody had brought in a dinosaur skeleton, so I would, feed him every morning. And there was a skull. I put some hair on it and called him Wilson, Wilson, And I got some stuff done. And it was amazing, emerging out of that hole at 5 in the afternoon, how light I felt. Now, you do whatever you want to do, but if you will do this, you'll be amazed at how much more your life truly flows. Now, just a little bit of note on this. I learned this stuff after my first summer, a meeting similar to this, and I did maybe 10% of it. Had a tough year. The next year, I listened to the same material, made a different resolution, had a little more maturity, and I applied about 90% of it. And my senior year at Harvard was the most fun academic year of my life, because I not only was completing my honors thesis, I was taking 4 difficult advanced level courses. I was the secretary of the university choir. I was secretary general in the Harvard National Model United Nations, which is a big deal over there. I had a part-time job. I had a girlfriend. I was the campus org leader for Southwestern, and I played lead guitar in a rock band. Wow. And I got my best grades ever. And it was just a matter of not controlling time, because you can't do that, but we can control what? Ourselves. So let that work. Okay, a couple of quick tidbits. So far, is this helpful? Yeah. Okay, should I pack up and go, or stay a little longer? Okay. All right. Football players in here are all familiar with what's called the 2-minute drill, but this is a different kind. Again, let's suppose the class starts at 10. If a student comes, when does the typical student show up? 10 plus, right? And they come wandering in, oh, well, man, where's my chair? Oh, whoa. And they try to get their book out. Oh, wrong book. And they're just not into it. And sometimes I'll interview them and I'll say, excuse me, I understand you're not into it. Yeah, that's right, man, I'm not into it. Why aren't you into it? Because I'm really out of it, man. Okay. Challenge you to come 2 minutes early. First of all, so you can get your seat. Now, I admire these front row people, but this is where the nerds and the geeks sit, all right? That's not cool. You are in the sweet spot. These seats right here, this is the sweet spot. And I'll tell you how this will help you with your professors here in just a minute, all right? So come early. And second, get your notes out, do a quick scan, and see if you can play the game called, I think my professor will begin with a sentence like this. And see how close you are to what she says, and that's when you know you are in sync, right? Now, when class is over and they say, okay, see you next time, what does the typical student do? The typical student dematerializes. Beam me up, Scotty. I mean, they're gone instantly. In fact, if you don't believe the dead come back to life, go to any college classroom at the end of the lecture. The dead come back to life and they leave. But have you ever noticed that you get so busy taking notes, you have a whole bunch of half notes, they're not complete? Music majors take a lot of quarter notes. Sorry. All right. And by the way, somebody once described my speaking style as just like the javelin thrower that was cross-eyed. Never won any medals, but he kept the crowd wide awake. So instead of leaving with a bunch of these fractional notes, stay 2 extra minutes. And second, if you don't understand something, who's usually still in the room packing up her stuff? Your teacher. So you can walk up and say, oh, excuse me, Prof, did I get this formula right? She looks at it and says, no, that plus sign should be a minus sign. And she just saved you a world of hurt, right? So 2 minutes before, 2 minutes after. It's a small amount, but it really helps your head stay in it, and you get more done with that, which is really key. Now, speaking to your professor, interesting finding over the summer. You may not have heard this because you've been on the book field, but a detailed international study of people that teach at universities was completed in August. And they discovered, shockingly, that 95% of all teachers in universities had 2 human parents, leading to the unmistakable conclusion that they are also human, which means they have human feelings, emotions, reactions. Oh my gosh, this is a shock. And you've been all summer dealing with humans, and so I want you to realize your profs are humans too. Sitting where these folks is perfect. The typical student does not even take notes. They sleep a lot, or they check Sports Center. These guys, these ladies, this is how you take notes. All right, now it won't be long because these guys are all asleep, that you're getting a one-to-one presentation here from your tutor, from your lecturer. And that's so important because professors are human too. I know you're excited about going back to school, but I don't think all your teachers necessarily are. In fact, probably first day of class, some of them hit the snooze alarm about 8 or 10 times, rolled over and hit the ceiling and said, here we go again. Year number 8 of trying to qualify for tenure. Still paying for my graduate school student loans. That taxi company keeps calling me, trying to headhunt me. You know, I got 150 students this semester. History tells me I'll see maybe 120 of them occasionally. Several of them I'll only see the tops of their heads because they'll be so busy on their devices. A few of them I'll be afraid are going to have whiplash injuries as they take notes. Sleeping. There'll be 1 or 2 paying attention, and there'll be a small but significant minority staring at me with thinly veiled homicidal intent. Your teacher walks into class, and typically is the front row occupied? No, unless the room's really small. It's empty, and the second row is empty. So what does that non-verbally say to the professor before a word is spoken? Don't get too close. We don't want to be here. We don't want you here. Keep your distance, bucko, and nobody will get hurt. Now, you don't have to sit in the front. I know you have principles and you have a cool card you're regaining. But you guys, again, you're in the sweet spot. Professor's point of view. Do your professors have what is called office hours? Yes. All right. If an average student goes to see the professor, what part of the semester do they go if they go? At the end, when they're in trouble. When they're in trouble. When their butt's in a crack and they need help. So they come in on their knees in supplication pose, and at that point, your teacher's holding all the cards, man. She's in a Roman toga, drinking wine, eating grapes, and saying, so tell me your sad story. And as you're telling your story, the teacher's thinking, have I ever seen this human before? Have they contributed in class discussions? Have they ever once raised their hand and taken the initiative? Are they prepared for stuff? I don't really think so. So I want you to do the opposite. Go see each one of your teachers next week or no later than the week after. Go to their office hours, knock on the door. They'll be in there playing video games. They're not expecting anybody. And when you knock on the door, they'll say, can I help you? And smile your biggest smile and say, I'm not selling anything. A short phrase for which you've waited 3.5 long months to admit, right? And the professor's not sure why you're there. So you introduce yourself, look them in the eye, shake your hands, and say, well, my name's Dan Moore. I'm a junior poli-sci major, thinking about going to law school, but I'm not really sure. And I'm in your 402 seminar this semester. Yes. And I'm here to get some advice. What are some ideas you can give me that would help me get the most out of your class this semester? What are some ideas you can share that help me get the most? And once in a while, they'll just actually tear up. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, but they told me in graduate school that I might meet someone like you someday. And here you are. Let's talk. And you're going to discover some amazing things. First of all, your professors are brilliant. You don't get to become a college professor because you're too dumb to drive a truck. They're brilliant. They are funny. They're offbeat. They've traveled the world. And oftentimes they're very shy, and that's why they have the reputation of being boring lecturers. You meet them one-on-one, it's amazing. You show genuine interest, pop them a quick email afterward. Thanks for the tips, looking forward to seeing you in class. And this is your final ace in the hole with your profs. Remember, you've had this extra time at the library? You're going to find you have too much time. Your homework will be done. Tick all the boxes, you're done. You're tired of reading Earthquake Monthly. And so you say, well, I got hours to fill. I know. Do they ever give you suggested optional readings? Yeah, so you might do those, or additional practice problems. So you got nothing else to do, so you do those. And this is where you can definitely develop mystique. Professor says, okay, any questions? And there's normally one designated person who raises their hand and says, yeah, will this be on the test? Which betrays immense intellectual curiosity, right? But you just snake your little hand up in the air and you say, yes, Professor, I have a question. In optional reading number 3, and just let that hang. Do you agree with Markowitz's point of view, or do you think in suggested monograph 2 that Hofmeister has a better perspective? Now, 2 things will happen. Number 1, the rest of the class will quit. Game over. That's it. And number 2, you will see a college professor tap dance. Oh, optional 3. Well, it's been a while since I've read optional 3. I'm kind of rusty on that. What do you think about it? Either way, you've established yourself as a player. So remember, these profs are human, and understand that. All right. Use what you're paying for. My gosh, you have every resource known to humankind on your campus. Do they have recreational facilities? Do they have health facilities? Do they have counseling facilities? Do they have tutors? They have everything. Use it all. Even if you don't need it, use it because you're paying for it. How about self-talk?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody meet this guy during the summer? I got news for you. The summer is his part-time gig. That's his side hustle. Mr. M was born on a college campus, created in a lab by demented biology students, lives on the campus. And so you got to be ready for some great self-talk. Now, just a quick reminder what self-talk is not. It's not getting a mirror and staring at it over and over and saying, I'm a tiger, I'm a tiger. Because if you stare at it too loud, something horrible will come out of that mirror. So, here's that javelin thrower again, right? All right, so I got you. So remember this, self-talk is not self-delusion. Self-talk is what we say to ourselves about ourselves. That's self-talk. And if you say, I just don't feel like studying, yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. You never will. Just beat that thing right off your head and listen to constructive self-talk. It's like an internal traffic cop, isn't it? And you all know what that's like. That little cop that stops you and says, hey laddie, I know you're wanting to go to the left, but the left is where the trouble are. If you go to the right, you'll be all right. And I'll remember your mother at Mass. And it's that little voice in your head that says, go to the right direction. Watch who you hang out with. How many of you discovered this summer the importance of roommates? The importance of your organization? And do we discover also in life that we become a lot like the people we associate with? So it's simple. If you want to get better grades, hang out with people who care about their grades. If you want to be more fit, hang out with people that care about fitness. It seems so simple, but I was a bit rebellious after my first summer. Said, man, I'm ready to get back in my party mode, see my party friends. And 20 alcoholic pounds later and horrible grades and a rotten self-image, I realized, you know, bad call, Dan, bad call. So hang with people that care. It's really important. For your devices that you've been so anxious to get back to, you're used to not looking at them all the time. Keep that habit. Keep that habit because it keeps you more present, keeps you more focused, which is great. Now, what if you get behind? You get in what's called a hole. So we know what rule number 1 is in life if you find yourself in a hole? No, not quite yet, Maddie. Rule number 1 is stop digging. Don't make it worse. In other words, sometimes students get to midterms and their grades are disappointing and they say, oh, disappointing grades, midterms. party rest of the semester. No, that's digging a deep hole. Instead, stop, pause, think, get some counseling, get some help, get a tutor, get on schedule, get an accountability partner, and pull out of that tailspin, because that really builds our self-confidence. A lot of you turned your whole summer around by what you did the last couple of weeks. So you know it's powerful and positive to do that. So here's a couple of quick questions. Who is responsible for your success in college?
Yourself.
Yep, so I want everybody to repeat after me. Raise your hand in the air, and with powerful enthusiasm say, I and I alone, am responsible, for my success in university. My student manager is not. My parents are not. My negative roommate is not. I and I alone. Bravo. Yeah, now here's what's amazing about that. This now endows you with tremendous authority. Whenever humans say, I and I alone am responsible, they gain authority to do something. If ever we say, well, it's not my fault, you lose all authority. Whenever we blame someone else, we lose all authority. So just remember, as Dr. Stephen Covey said, we are not a product of our circumstances. We're a product of our decisions. So when we say, I'm responsible, makes a difference. And then find somebody who can be your accountability partner. I would not be standing here with you with the degree I got from Harvard if it were not for Ben Davis, another student manager. He was tough-minded enough that he would agree to hold me accountable to meeting him at 7:30 in the morning for breakfast to get my day started. Because for me, the early morning was the hardest part. And Ben went to all kinds of extremes, I'll tell you about him sometime, and it worked, and I owe him a lot. So find somebody that can be your accountability partners. You have got so many opportunities in front of you. Love your college experience. Just enjoy it, max it out. Just be rich in reveling in the opportunities that you have. And for everybody around the world that does this program, wave at our friends again from Europe. Make it a great semester. Nothing attracts like success. And when we're succeeding in college, we are attractors. And that's really what we want to be. So thank you all for being beacons of what's right and good, and for being the kind of people you are. Enjoy the rest of your day.